Grok TV.
GrokTALK. GrokTALK.
Congress needs to end wasteful government spending, like the $787 billion of taxpayer money thrown away in the 2009 stimulus package. It may not have done you any good, but U.S. Senator Jeanne Shaheen's business interest made out to the tune of $78,000. No wonder she doesn't want to talk about it whenever the subject pops up. Call Senator Shaheen and tell her you're tired of wasteful government spending.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you can only get from GraniteGrok.com.
GrokTALK.
I just wanted to remind our listeners that the term rational libertarians was created by Tim Condon, or maybe brought to our group by
who
Tim
contacted
Condon.
me this week, by the way.
Did he? Who considers himself, I suspect, to be a rational libertarian. We could debate that at some other time, I suppose. Yeah, as opposed to cane kitties, yes. Naked beer-drinking pot smokers in the park, yes.
That's a good segue, actually. If you wanted to. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
go.
So Tim Condon contacted me this week because he saw a quote that I had made during this whole massive thread. And the quote was, "Anarchism works as a revolutionary philosophy but falls apart as a way of life." Henry David Thoreau, inspired a movement, but he did not build a community. Libertarians will inspire a renewed republic, but conservatives will run it. So my sense is that the libertarian energy
wow,
is
that must have
extremely...
stirred up the libertarian bee nest just a tiny little
Well,
bit.
and that's the point I've been trying to make, and I really admire the libertarian energy, and I have lots of friends in the Free State Project. I've met people for years since I've been in New Hampshire, so there's no animus there, but I just have always argued back and forth with this sort of anarchist edge of it that that's never going to be a sustainable way to build a country or run the country.
Good. I think we found the right sparring partner. Now we have to get John Bush from Texas on because he's an anarchist. He believes in no government and all cooperative society.
Total voluntary society, right?
Yeah.
And there's never been a voluntary society, 100% voluntary
there
society.
isn't, because sooner or later you have a coercive leader will take over, and the whole point of constitutionally limited government is to try and get to that point where the government is small enough not to intrude, and just enough to keep things running.
They're pulling in the right direction, which is why I support the Free State Project. I support the voluntary movement, but I think they're pulling a bridge too far. I think, where are they going with all this? And I'm really concerned about that.
I absolutely support their right to live off the land, to disconnect from government as far as possible. And, if we instituted something like a fair tax, you wouldn't even have to go after these people for income and property taxes.
Right. I support that.
Everybody would participate in society to the degree they wanted.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm just concerned about how far they go, and can they really work together in a community of people that are actually trying to make a difference. I'm concerned about our country. We're in perilous shape, I think. Everything's, there's nothing happening good internationally. This whole Ebola thing, nothing in the federal government is working at all, right? We have polarization. So we need people to come together. Like, we need leaders to kind of come together to pull this country together and do something. So
I think there is something that is, in fact, working down in Washington. It sounds like this. There you go.
Screw D.C., save New Hampshire.
That's right.
I don't give a damn about the federal politicians
or
the federal government. If we can't keep New Hampshire intact, none of it really matters.
No, and we need to focus in the states, in each state individually, jointly and severally, as the legal term goes, need to focus on their own internal affairs and being intact and being strong enough to tell the federal government that we created you, you didn't create us. And unless and until the states stand up and say that, the federal government is going to continue to squash the states.
They're drug dealers. When you look at, we're coming into the next legislative session. The first session is always the budget. And when you look at the New Hampshire budget and you realize that 40% of the state's revenue is laundered taxpayer money.
It's only 40? I thought it was more.
41, 42 is chump change, right? So the
It's
idea
60
is,
when it goes down to D.C. and it's 40 when it comes back.
well, it's money laundering and
Yeah.
it's drug dealing, and they give you a little taste of a grant. And they give you a little bit of,
Right.
I've got surveillance cameras up on 89 that just went up about a month ago. The Department of Transportation. I called them up
Cash,
and I said, "Excuse me, what are these things up on 89 at the exit?" Oh, it's traffic mitigation on 89 North, right? Must be a deer increase in the population that we've got traffic up there. But the Fed,
We're looking for moose.
we're looking for
moose.
and squirrel.
Moose and squirrel.
Moose and squirrel.
We are looking for moose and squirrel.
Yes.
So does Boris Badenoff run the Department of Transportation in New Hampshire?
He could. I bet Natasha's standing right behind him.
Yeah.
Or Annie.
Or Annie.
Hey, in Scotland, they actually do look for squirrels, and you actually have to report to the government if you see a grey one. Because the red are a protected species, and the grey are the invasive species.
But, New Hampshire
Wipe
is...
out the Tea Party squirrels. I see how they are.
They're
Those
more
are the
like
ones
they're more
that
like
plan.
they're
Those are
more
the
like
ones that plan to put the nuts away instead of becoming nuts, right? But we're
yes.
dependent on laundered money. We're dependent on that drug
Yeah.
from the feds.
It's
And it's
artificial.
dumb. It's stupid, too.
Yeah.
What did I read about last week? Henniker wants a $2.6 million grant so they can save the town $1.5 million over
I saw
20
that.
years.
And he was looking
This
very
is government. This is government at work, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Why don't you just give them $1.5 million and call it a day? We'll save $1 million. I mean, really, that's what we've come down
It's
to.
an artificial economy. It's not a real economy. It's just
Well,
money being laundered around and floating around.
Essentially, the machinations of 100 years ago were to create the mechanism by which the government could bribe the states with the money stolen from the state citizens and thereby exert control over us.
Exactly.
That is exactly what the income tax and the Federal Reserve were created to do.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, they're doing a real good job. So
and
we're
the 17th
kidding
Amendment.
ourselves here.
So
in New
did
Hampshire.
anybody have any suggestions about how to...
I think we should legalize marijuana because we're going to make a lot of tax money off of it.
yeah, that's working out in Colorado, isn't it?
Lots of suggestions.
Oh, and don't forget to legalize those casinos so that Maggie Hassan can have her revenue stream also imaginary.
I think what's really happening is the factions are being identified more, right? They're coming out. The various factions we have within this loose kind of movement. And one dividing line for me is, are you an American? That's kind of where I'm coming from. I'm an American. I'm a citizen. I love my country. I believe in the ideals that the country was founded on. I want to support my country. So I'm patriotic, and I do support New Hampshire. But I also feel like I want to support my country. So I perceive a dividing line sometimes around that. You come across
between those who believe in the country as founded
Yes.
because they understand the philosophy, and those who don't believe in the country as founded because either A, low information voters, they don't understand the philosophy, or B, they are part of the evil party.
Well, I think there's some that don't differentiate government from the country. I believe the country embodies our values, kind of who we are, our kind of identity as people, the American community. Then the government are all those jerks that have screwed it all up, right? So I think there are people that are lumping that together. The government and the country is sort of one, and the anarchists do that. They don't make any distinction between
you
that.
You could certainly make the case that is exactly what the government wants you to think.
Yes.
So if you buy into that, then you're pretty much carrying their water again.
Yeah, but I
In
think
other words, if you support the country, you must support its government.
Correct.
If you support the country, you must support the president. I can honor the role of the presidency without honoring the policies of this president.
Well, I support the country, but not the current government that has screwed it up. And I feel like that's the strength of the conservative coalition. We support our country, and we think the people have ruined it. And we got to get rid of those people, the oligarchy, the ruling class. That's ruined it. We should be fighting those people,
Well,
fighting
they
the
have.
ruling class.
And the occupieds think they're fighting those people, but they're misplaced.
They're misplaced. They're fighting the capitalism.
Right. If
They're
capitalism,
carrying water for the communists and Marxists as well.
They are. Yeah, and the libertarians feed that. So I love the libertarians. I'm trying not to be too hostile toward them, but I do get concerned with this constant conservative bashing and conflating country and government all the time.
And therein you see the difference, I think, as you said, big L and small L. Therein, I think you see the difference between Ron Paul, who was perfectly happy to embrace the communists if they would go his way, and Rand Paul, who is a constitutional conservative, or maybe constitutional libertarian.
And Ron Paul's really disappointed me because he hasn't come out more for the country. I mean, I think he's allowed the anarchists that in his own sort of world to pull him a little too far. And I wanted him during the campaign to come out in a more pro-American way, Right. And I think when Rand Paul did that, of course, he got destroyed by the anarchist wing within the liberty movement. And I think that's really too bad. And
it is bad because those people represent such a small fraction of even the libertarian movement.
But they're loud.
Oh, they're very loud.
Very loud.
And you say you notice the crossover too when you see the Democrats run libertarian candidates, which really are Democrats.
Well, I mean it. I wish the libertarians would infiltrate the Democratic Party. They've made it very clear that they want to infiltrate the Republican Party and take it over.
They do much better with the Democrat Party because they really stand a lot more in line with an older traditional Democrat than they do with any aspect of Republican.
I think they should run as Democrats. I think they should.
A few of them have.
You think they make good blue dog Democrats, right?
Well, I think they would have a better chance of changing the Democratic Party and pulling them really more towards the center. I think.
The problem is that at its heart, the Democrat Party is in fact a communist party, and that doesn't exactly fit well with the beliefs of the libertarians either. I mean, you can say that they're about my rights as opposed to my responsibilities because they don't understand they go together, but the Democrat Party, if not necessarily its lower echelons, know full well what they're doing, which is to reduce us all under absolute tyranny.
I don't think the anarchists care who they infiltrate. That's my point. It was made clear to me they want to take over a party. Mm-hmm. They just think the Republicans are easier to take over.
That's probably true.
Yeah, probably true. But I think they should shift. They've tried to take over the Republican Party. It's not working, right? This whole thing in New Hampshire. It didn't work. The platform basically stayed the same. They didn't get what they want. Now they're calling us Christian Taliban and all kinds of other stuff. I say they should go. All right, why don't they try the Democratic Party? They tried the Republican Party. It didn't work. Go the Democratic Party.
I mean, anybody who equates Christianity and Judaism with the depredations of Islam has a fundamental misunderstanding of history and of those ideologies. Christianity and Judaism and most of the other world religions, the Sikhs, for example, are big on family, on responsibility, on honoring the women, defending the weak, and so on. Whereas Islam is all about Islam. Just as Muhammad was all about Muhammad. It's about it's about self-aggrandizement, it's about expansion, and it's about killing anybody who gets in your way.
Superiority,
and that's how Marxism works. That's how fascism works.
Exactly.
And they call us fascists. Boy, do they ever have it wrong. And if they ever get what they want, they'll find out.
Right. At a time that our country's under attack by this fascist ideology, we've got people on our camp supposedly calling us Taliban. I mean, this is really
we're going to go to a quick break,
hostile,
but I had a passing thought while you were talking about the anarchists, and I was thinking, well, we've got the brown shirts and we've got the green shirts. So would the anarchists be the no shirts?
The black shirts.
The no shirts.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
Senator Jean Shaheen said, if you like your current health plan, you can keep it. That's not true, Senator. 22,000 New Hampshire citizens have been kicked off their insurance plans. Hospitals in Rochester, Concord, and Portsmouth, they aren't allowed to provide care under the exchange. Senator, you were wrong in your comments. You should apologize for your misleading remarks. I'm calling Senator Shaheen at 750-3004 and telling her I want my doctor back. You should too.
Paid for by SaberPac.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
She tried to make us believe she was a fiscal conservative, but State Senator Nancy Stiles has been deceiving New Hampshire taxpayers. Like a wolf in sheep's clothing, she claimed to be one of us, pretending to blend in, but all along voting like a liberal Democrat. She voted to raise your gas tax by another 23%, taking a bigger bite out of our wallets every time we're at the pump. And oh, how she drooled at the opportunity to vote to expand Obamacare, which will result in higher taxes and longer wait times in the emergency room. And now the Senate wants to pass a bill to prevent us from criticizing Senator Stiles' vote. Call Senator Stiles at 603-918-0553 and tell her that we're on to her wolf in sheep's clothing routine. Tell her to stop pretending to be a fiscal conservative and start voting like one. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
Rock Talk.
Skip was talking to me when I was putting my headset on. I didn't hear anything he said. Welcome back to GrokTALk. I'm Steve McDonald here with Skip Murphy, who is micless. And then we have a mic to replace the micless Skip Murphy at the end, and he has a mic. And of course, we have Kevin here to join us and have some conversations, and Susan Olson, who
and Annie.
And Annie Custer.
Oh yeah, the
empty chair.
Absent
the anti-chair.
Absent Annie. I'm also going to have to start finding some old advertisements for Cadbury's Turkish Delight, because I am going to keep on about Maggie Turkish Delight Hassan.
There you go.
Hassan! And her overseas connections.
I was going to say, we had Susan on last week with a cell phone in a loud room, and we have to not do that anymore, by the way, just as a mental note when we call in. Try to find someplace quiet, because I couldn't hear you.
I was at the gun show.
I listened, and that's a great place to be.
You need one of these.
I was listening to the show when I was doing the post-production, and I'm like...
What is that?
I was hoping I could hear you better on the recorded version, and I couldn't, and I'm like, damn it.
Yeah. What you need is one of these. This is a trucker's headset, which I use for noisy environments and in my convertible with the lid down, and it works.
Had I had it, I would have used it.
Yeah.
He was in Scotland. He couldn't loan it to you.
Yeah,
no.
indeed.
And we should have had you calling from Scotland. I don't know why we didn't do that.
I actually volunteered, and Skip said, no, stick with the family. And it was actually, the problem is that GrokTALk would have been early afternoon when I was, in fact, out with my dad getting some stuff and then going to see my mother in the hospital. So
just a second, Dad. I got to do an interview.
Yeah. So
Sorry about that.
So
what?
The time shift wouldn't have worked. The other way, when I'm in California, I just get up early on a Saturday morning and call in and then go about my day.
It occurs to me, as somebody who doesn't sleep very much, really, I think 6 hours a night maybe. I would rather call in the afternoon from Scotland than get up at like 5 a.m. to call here from California. That's just me. Even though I'd probably already be up, I just whenever we have guests on from the West Coast, I always feel bad because, we're on at 9 and it's 6 there, which means they had to get up. Sometimes they've just got up, and they sound like they just got up.
The Californians, especially in high tech, have a split personality. There are those that do get up at 5 and 6 a.m. and start their day and then get to the office before the traffic. And there are those that get up later and don't get to the office until 10 o'clock because in between times the traffic is such hell that nobody wants to be on the road.
Sure.
Okay, so we could beat some more bushes. We have plenty of those. I don't mean, George W. or his dad.
George W. showed his class again this week. You can argue with the guy's policies, but as a human, he's a very classy guy. Two ways. He had his Wounded Warrior golf game this week, showing that he continues to care for the people that he and Barack sent to war. Which is far more than we say for the current occupant. And he showed his class another way when they asked him some questions about ISIS and what he predicted, and he answered them very carefully and did not dump on Obama like he could easily have done, like Obama does because he's free to do so and he's not an ex-president.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Romney does. Romney dumped on Obama very nicely a few times.
That does, by the way, concern me. The an ex-President Obama, he's never going to shut up, ever.
No, well, we know what it looks like.
I think
You just need to paint Obama brown. Not Obama. Paint Carter brown, and you got it.
I think he'll be in rehab. Actually, to be honest with you,
I think he's gonna get.
once he's out,
If he doesn't
Be
get
in
to be the head, he doesn't get to be the head of the United Nations. He might become so depressed that the world has rejected him. That's
Well,
a
you know,
horrible
he's
thing to happen.
he's about 500 years before his time. His role is to be president of the Galactic Foundation.
Oh, he should be running the Federation. I
The
got it.
Federation,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, but there's no money in the Federation. What's he going to do?
That's right.
Yeah.
From whom does one
and that's
steal?
and that's assumed that he ever relinquishes power because he's a Klingon, Captain.
That's, by the way, which demonstrates that it is a fantasy, because anybody who understands human nature knows that there is no society without remuneration that would function properly. Because the Pilgrims learned it when they came here.
Mr. Bradford kind of screwed it
Right,
up.
yep. So everybody knows it's just for entertainment. Unfortunately, the entertainment we're getting now requires them to take our stuff to give it to other people who will vote for them. And
And now we're passing notes because I have Skip's headset.
from Lucian.com, Border Patrol on alert after 71 people from hard-hit Ebola countries illegally enter U.S. this year.
Ruh-roh.
So,
wow, that just came out now.
Ebola.
Obola.
Now, you know, it's we brought it up on Granite Grok. There were going to be people coming across the border. Of course, everybody did, because the kids. When we were talking about the refugee kids and how they were spreading them around the country.
Oh,
So-
the kids brought TB and
A clear
and
case of
EV68.
policy, but there could be kids with Ebola who came over who
Yes,
weren't
they
showing
could.
symptoms. They could do the exact same thing. It's the same policy that distributes the EV60.
Anchor Ebola.
Right,
Anchor Ebola.
right. And then now you've got a more dangerous virus. You know, I mean, we worried about hantavirus. We worried about tuberculosis. We worried about all those things that they have in these foreign countries that we don't have to deal with because we have good medicine here. Well, we're on our way downhill. But, and, you know.
And why don't
what-
we limit traffic to
Well,
travel
the,
to
the
I
big
have no
news
idea.
the other big news this week was, if you saw, we posted it in 2005 or 6 or whatever. Obama was complaining about the Bush administration's policies with regard to preparedness for epidemics, and then of course somebody else came out and reported that in 2010, 2011, the very thing that senator was asking about, who's now president, said, no, screw all those regulations about, you know, filtering all these disease-infested people out before we let them in. Just let them in. And now here they are, and we have this. And, you know, even the media is beginning to get tired of Obama. And now he's just pissed off the entire CIA and the intelligence community. This is not a very bright man, okay? Because somebody pointed out yesterday, and I forget who it was, I was reading it online, that those people, you don't screw with those people, okay?
Typically, no.
They will now, between now and when he's gone, they will leak news every freaking week until he is done. Because, I mean, they can. That's what they do. Their entire intelligence is their life.
Do not these guys know how to stage a coup? Can't we possibly pray for that?
They do, but I wouldn't want a coup. I mean, as much as I dislike the guy, I wouldn't want. First of all, I value human life, even life like that. And secondly, because, you know, we have an ordered form of government that's very successful. I was, you know, 1800, you may not love Jefferson, whether you love him or not, but that was the first vote where there was a dramatic change of power. Jefferson was very different from those who preceded him, and it was a peaceful change of power. So we have to have a peaceful change of power, because if we don't, then we're giving in to the Marxists and the anarchists and the leftists and the progressives.
No, you're absolutely right. It just depends if he does something to provoke it. And
But I
you know.
feel the same thing you're saying. I feel, what is it going to take to get this guy out?
Somebody could very easily.
He should have been impeached after about 2 years.
Well, first you got to get rid of
balls.
Valerie Jarrett. Somebody's got to make her go somewhere. Like maybe she goes on a vacation in the Himalayas to look at the glaciers that are melting or something, you know. And then she discovers that she really wants to be a Sherpa or something and stays there. Okay, don't harm her. Just convince her that she needs to be someplace else.
They do need to be unionized.
Mrs. Obama needs to go on a fact-finding tour someplace.
A fact
finding?
Fact-finding tour.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
We both heard
Fact
the same
finding
thing.
tour. Actually, a fat-finding tour would work because of her lunch program where she's trying to reduce fat. She could go do that. I'm not talking about her. I'm talking
Actually,
about
a
her policies.
fact-finding program would be the Mirror.
Joan
Well, that
Rivers
would be-
said she's a tranny. Joan Rivers said she's a tranny, a transsexual.
Yeah, well, I've heard that too. Umo, Abed, whatever. There's lots of stories. But who cares? She's a Marxist. I don't care what she does with her free time. Stop taking my money. And then once Obama's alone for a couple days, the intelligence community can start giving him briefings whether he wants them or not. And, straighten his bacon out.
Yeah.
Now, quite frankly, my give a damn is broken. I'm worried about New Hampshire. I don't care about Washington.
You don't think there's any hope?
I've been worried about New Hampshire for
I
a long
don't.
time.
I don't think there's any hope. And
I go
there's
back and forth.
There's a dime's bit of difference between any of them.
I think this post came from the little bit of hope I have left. Like maybe we can really try to do something.
But we can do something in New Hampshire. Just forget about these people. And I keep saying over and over again that the biggest problem New Hampshire has is that damn first in the nation primary status. Because Papa Sununu, Papa Smurf, sucks all of the money and all of the air out of state and local elections. That think about the per capita expenditure that these national candidates have to make to come up here and get in the spotlight and here with the people,
and they don't go after voter fraud for the same reason, right?
Well, no, they
don't
don't
want to draw negative attention to the state.
So all of this, and I was told at a meeting
we're going to screw that up next week. So
last month that the National Party was putting $40,000 to $45,000 a week into the state. So all of these Republican
something has to pay
candidates,
Jennifer's pool bills. Oh, sorry.
So none of the state candidates are getting money. At least the ones for whom I might.
You say she's pooling her funds?
She could be pooling her funds, indeed.
Now you're all wet.
You're all wet, that's right. Maybe she took a dive.
Trying
I
to
don't
keep
know.
her head above water?
Possibly. But the point
and
is
by the way, we
that
call all of these surrogates, including Jennifer. In your rant, I think it was Skip, called them all surrogates, including Jennifer, which I thought was a nice slip of the tongue because she's a surrogate for the Papa Gnome anyway.
Well, of course she is. So people here in New Hampshire think that we're really smart and we're very politically savvy, and these guys come around and shake our hand and eat at our diner and stuff like that, and that we never get anybody elected, but we get old man Sununu's people elected on the state and the national level, and that's got to stop. Look at this guy. He was thrown out of 40. What number?
40,
was 41?
41's
He was thrown out of 41's administration, for God's sake.
Notice that Reagan didn't let him near the levers of power, and because we have the blood feud between Sununu and Gingrich over who was trying to corrupt the budget in the H.W. Bush administration.
I think what we've learned here is that New Hampshire is actually just an aquarium where rich people come and tap on the glass.
We're a petri dish.
We'll be right back in segment 4. If the pool guy shows up, if he doesn't, we'll talk about this stuff, because that's what we're here for. We'll be right back.
We're activated.
New Hampshire is famous for scenic drives, but they're tough to enjoy when you're on your way to the doctor. Because Obamacare limits your choices, some will have to drive more than an hour to see a doctor. What's health insurance worth if care isn't there when you need it? Jean Shaheen voted for Obamacare, putting your doctors and hospitals further out of reach. Tell Senator Shaheen Obamacare is not working for New Hampshire.
She tried to make us believe she was a fiscal conservative, but State Senator Nancy Stiles has been deceiving New Hampshire taxpayers. Like a wolf in sheep's clothing, she claimed to be one of us, pretending to blend in, but all along voting like a liberal Democrat. She voted to raise your gas tax by another 23%, taking a bigger bite out of our wallets every time we're at the pump. And oh, how she drooled at the opportunity to vote to expand Obamacare, which will result in higher taxes and longer wait times in the emergency room. And now the Senate wants to pass a bill to prevent us from criticizing Senator Stiles' vote. Call Senator Stiles at 603-918-0553 and tell her that we're on to her wolf in sheep's clothing routine. Tell her to stop pretending to be a fiscal conservative and start voting like one. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
GrokTALK. He tried to make us believe he was a fiscal conservative, but State Senator Dave Booten has been deceiving New Hampshire taxpayers. Like a wolf in sheep's clothing, he claimed to be one of us, pretending to blend in, but all along voting like a liberal Democrat. He voted to raise your gas tax by another 23%, taking a bigger bite out of our wallets every time we're at the pump. And oh, how he drooled at the opportunity to vote to expand Obamacare, which will result in higher taxes and longer wait times in the emergency room. And now the Senate wants to pass a bill to prevent us from criticizing Senator Booten's vote? Call Senator Booten at 603-203-5391 and tell him that we're on to his wolf in sheep's clothing routine. Tell him to stop pretending to be a fiscal conservative and start voting like one. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
Grok TV.